Hello friends, and welcome to episode 4 of Kingdom Talk. Like always, I'm your host David, and as usual, I am joined by my good friend Korliss. Hello Korliss, how are you?
Hey David, I'm good. How are you, friend?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me again. And today, everyone, we're going to be answering your questions about Disney Genie, Genie Plus, Lightning Lanes. It's a lot to cover, but hopefully Korliss and I can help answer some questions and kind of share some of our personal opinions about this new system. But before I go any further, I just want to say, I noticed this video is going up on Thanksgiving. Of course, we're recording before Thanksgiving, but for any of you watching on actual Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. I normally host Thanksgiving, but this year I completely relinquished control, gave it up. I switched things around with the family. Korliss, how about you? What are your Thanksgiving traditions?
Well, we spend time with both sides of our family. We'll go to my husband's side, which is about 45 minutes from where we live here in Alabama. And then we'll come back towards where we live, where most of my family is. And we have people coming from out of town. So our day is pretty full. Depending on when this airs, I may be taking my second or third nap.
Yeah, that sounds a lot busier than me. Mine's a lot smoother. We're a smaller bunch. But so yes, happy Thanksgiving to you, Korliss, and to your family.
Thank you.
And happy Thanksgiving to all of you Americans out there who are watching. Hope you have a great day. But let's get straight to today's discussion topic. And before we start answering questions, I have to do a quick overview about how this new system works, because it's definitely confusing and there's a lot to tackle. Disney Genie is Disney's newest itinerary planning tool at both Walt Disney World and Disneyland. It has essentially replaced FastPass Plus. Now, there are 3 levels to this service. First is regular Disney Genie. This is completely free for all guests and comes with a few key features. First, it provides a personalized itinerary. Before you start your day in one of the parks, you can tell Disney Genie what attractions you value the most and what types of experiences you like to enjoy. Based on what you input, the app will create a customized itinerary for you so you can navigate the park in a way that avoids some long lines. You'll also see the tips board here, which will update you on upcoming shows, current wait times, and a few cool dining features. If a table service restaurant is accepting walk-ins, you can find out what the current wait time is to grab a table at the last minute. And you can use mobile food order here as well. This service will also incorporate when you book any virtual queues. At the moment at Walt Disney World, only Remy's Ratatouille Adventure at Epcot is offering a virtual queue. But as new rides like Guardians of the Galaxy and Tron come, I'm sure Disney will use that system there too. Genie Plus is the next level up. This service costs $15 per person per day at Walt Disney World and $20 per person per day at Disneyland. If you're familiar with Max Pass from the West Coast, this is very similar. Genie Plus provides all the features I just mentioned and a few more. The main one being the ability to book Lightning Lane reservations. Think of this as the new Fast Pass. When you use a Lightning Lane, you'll skip the regular standby queue and jump right on to your favorite attraction. Now, you can only book these technically one at a time, and we'll get into some of those nitty-gritty details a little bit later. Now, when you purchase Genie Plus for the day, you'll also get access to augmented reality lenses. Think of this as Disney's own version of some Snapchat filters. And you'll also have access to some audio guides, which you can listen to while you're in the park for the day. And then we get the third aspect of Disney Genie, and this is when things can get a little bit complicated. Almost all of the major attractions at all 4 theme parks have Lightning Lanes, meaning when you purchase Genie Plus for the day, you can skip the line at nearly every single popular ride. However, each park has 2 attractions not included in the $15 a day option. Yet they still have their own Lightning Lane. They just cost an additional fee to use. At Magic Kingdom currently, this applies to Space Mountain and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And at Epcot, this is available at Remy's Ratatouille Adventure as well as Frozen Ever After. At Animal Kingdom, you'll see this at Expedition Everest and Flight of Passage. And finally, at Hollywood Studios, this is available at Rise of the Resistance and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Again, this can change in the future as new rides come. If you want to use a lightning lane at any of the attractions I just mentioned, you have to pay for them a la carte. And the exact price will fluctuate depending on the season, the day of the week, or simply how popular the ride is. At the moment, we've seen the price be anywhere from $7 per person per day to $15. And for the record, you don't have to purchase Genie Plus for the day to have access to these a la carte lightning lanes. So if you're heading to Epcot, you can choose to bypass doing virtual queue at Remy and purchase an individual lightning lane instead. And you don't have to get Genie Plus for the day to use the lightning lanes at other popular attractions like Test Track. It's a lot to take in, but this is the general gist of this new service.
So hopefully that starts to break down some questions you might have. There's definitely a lot of nitty-gritty details that we have to talk about. But first, Korliss and I are going to kind of discuss this new system a little bit. Korliss, I'm going to pose the first question to you. What was your initial gut reaction when Disney first announced this?
Take all my money, Disney. Why don't you? It's sort of like, oh gosh, another thing to pay for. I mean, that's my honest reaction. Oh, another thing to pay for, but I'm going to end up paying for it anyway. So it's kind of like, how can I figure out how to make this work for us? Especially for families who consider, really are working with a budget and them realizing, oh my gosh, this is adding more to my trip that doesn't include food. Now that they haven't brought back dining plans or anything yet, it's like, gosh, we're spending all this money and I still haven't eaten. All I'm doing is riding rides and looking at characters. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let me figure out how this is going to work and if it's going to be any different than Fast Pass or Fast Pass Plus.
Were you surprised that you'd have to pay for this?
To be honest, no. Disneyland had its thing, so it was kind of like, oh, I guess too, not to have this, oh my gosh, all this money. We have to understand first, Disney is a business. And they also suffered during the pandemic. So they're trying to figure out how to recoup some of this money that they did absolutely lose while things were shut down. Here's just another way that everybody kind of benefits from a purchase of some sort. So it's not that you're just buying merchandise, you're actually having some sort of benefit from this purchase, which I think is huge. I mean, I think it's big. If I see a long line in a regular queue and then I, pay my little $15, I'm like, hey, I'll be on and off before you even get a chance to see what's in the queue. Everybody wants to also feel special. That's just another way, to feel a little bit special.
I have to, I'm in the same boat as you. When they first said this, I was not surprised about the price whatsoever. And I'm glad you mentioned Disneyland because for those of you who might not know, Disneyland pre-2020 had what was called Max Pass. It was similar to the traditional paper Fast Pass ticket system where you kind of go one at a time and you did have to pay for it. And that's what essentially this new system is. But there was kind of two things. I had two main gut reactions when this first came out. First of all, and I want to make sure I articulate this in the right way, I was a little surprised about the price. I thought it was going to be much more expensive. But I don't want to make that sound like, oh, this is super cheap and easy. I can kind of see, like you said, I can feel that sense of, oh my God, this is something else I have to pay for, something else on top of everything else. But I really thought it was going to be higher. So in some ways I was like, well, okay, this is manageable. I can do this. But the really first big gut reaction I had was it was really confusing. I think the one feature that I'm just kind of frustrated with is the fact that each park has two attractions that are not included in that $15 a day rate. And I remember thinking to myself, man, if you don't watch YouTube channels like this, if you've never been to Disney, that's the part where I think this is really, really confusing. And I don't know how people, I think it's a steep learning curve, very, very steep learning curve. But saying all that, I have another question for you. Do you,
Okay.
there's now been three versions of a skip the line system. There was the original Fast Pass, like that paper system where you would go to the kiosk, put your ticket, and get it out. Fast Pass Plus, and then now this. Which of the three do you like the most, or which one fit with your personality and the way you and your family would travel?
To be honest, I did not like Fast Pass Plus. I mean, I did it because it had to be done. We had to get up, at the crack of dawn and make sure that we had our top three selections. But that was sort of stressful. Um, even though they were considered, complimentary with the ticket, it was really stressful for me to try to get up 60 days beforehand to determine what we would want to ride for that day. Um, so I guess in all honesty, I'm gonna say the original Fast
I was
Pass.
just going to ask you that. Like, you
Yeah.
definitely went when that existed, right? Like the traditional
Yes.
Fast.
I did make a couple trips during that
Because
time.
I should have
And
stipulated that I've had
yeah,
a bit of a go at this new system, but Corliss has not. So I was
no.
sort of like the first guinea pig between us two.
That's right. Yeah, no, I haven't done Genie Plus, and I'm excited to use it. I'm also excited to hear, your experience with it. But I would have to say the original Fast Pass because at least then, you get in the park and you get a ticket, and then you're fighting with everybody else day of, and it's not this whole, strenuous type of mind game of rushing to get a Slinky Dog Fast Pass. Those absolutely most popular attractions, from my home. Even though it's convenient, it still was just a lot. It felt like a lot. And then if you didn't get one when you wanted, even though there were ways around getting what you wanted, with Fast Pass Plus, still was a lot. I'm excited to use Genie Plus actually. Um, so I'm still saying the original Fast Pass.
So I have to admit that I think I was one of the very few people that actually really liked the previous system, the Fast Pass Plus system. But I know I was in the minority there. And I think that was because I went to the parks. I'm a hardcore planner. And so I always went with a very specific mission in mind. I would plan dining way ahead. And I also, because I shoot content for the channel, I'd go in with a very specific layout of the day of what I was going to ride, what I was going to shoot, and then I get really specific and make sure I shoot things at certain times of the day, making sure like the light's pretty good. And so it worked for me a lot, but I know I was a minority. I wasn't the normal person. And what I started to realize once I started using this was how much in that previous system and even the original system, because it was free, everybody was using it. And like you said, Corliss, if you didn't do it, if you didn't get on board and figure it out, you were going to get left behind and you were going to get stuck in some pretty bad lines. Whereas now the price, the confusion, as sucky as it is, it weeds some people out of it. And there's a lot less people using it. And I found it to be a lot easier than I thought it would be. All right, our first question comes from Megan, and Megan has asked, do you think Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes will stay? And unfortunately, Megan, yes, I think they will stay. This is it. This is the new system. Disney's quite stubborn. I think they're gonna really try to make this work for a long time. But saying all that, you'll notice in some of the questions Corliss and I got today that there's a lot of quirky rules. Some make sense, some don't make sense. I don't think all will stay. So I think a lot will change, but I do think this is here to stay. Corliss, what have you got for your first question?
I've got a question for Mary Ann, and she asks if a guest enters at rope drop, is Lightning Lane a time saver? I would say, Lightning Lane is always going to be a time saver. However, if you're rope dropping, then go ahead and knock out the attractions that you can and use Lightning Lanes for other attractions. So, especially for places like Animal Kingdom over there, you'll be able to rope drop certain attractions outside of Pandora and probably experienced them multiple times. I know Everest, we were able to ride like 3 or 4 times right as the park opened. So I would definitely still be strategic in how you use lightning lanes. So if you're going to rope drop, then use lightning lanes for the more popular attractions still. So still use it in that sense as we did with Fast Pass Plus.
Yeah, I actually did that little technique myself. I made my first one around 10:30, 11, and I rope drop and tried to just get a few in first. That seems to work well. I will say that just because you're rope dropping doesn't mean you don't have to do lightning lane for the day. I think at a place like Magic Kingdom, you still need to do both, maybe, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. My next question comes from Jill, and Jill has asked a great question. How many lightning lane reservations can you make at once, and are you allowed to park hop? Jill, I wish I had a simple answer for you for this. I don't. There's a lot to cover, so let me say this. First of all, technically, you can only book lightning lane reservations one at a time. So let's say, for example, you book your first one at Pirates. When you enter Pirates, you'll tap your Magic Band, and after you've tapped your Magic Band, you can then book your second one. There's some caveats to that, and it has to do with timing. I first have to say that everybody, no matter if you're staying on property, off property, or what time the park you're going to opens, can make their first lightning lane reservation at 7 a.m. The return time will kind of determine when you can make your next one. So for example, let's say at 7 a.m. you wake up and you book Pirates, but it's not until 12 noon. Disney kind of gives you a 2-hour rule. You can't book your next lightning lane until either you've ridden the attraction, but if it's more than 2 hours away, you can do it 2 hours from when you booked the previous lightning lane. But here's where it's tricky. You can book your first one at 7, but the park doesn't open at 9. So if you booked Pirates at noon, the 2-hour rule doesn't kick in until the park opens. So you wouldn't be able to book your next one until 11 a.m. I hope that makes sense. So it's one at a time, whatever comes first. If it's less than 2 hours, when you've ridden it, you can get your next one. If it's more than 2 hours, then it's at the 2-hour mark. But I have learned that the individual lightning lanes, these are those a la carte ones that are not included for the $15 a day. These are the ones that have their own price. That doesn't affect your regular Genie Plus ones. So at any point, you can just book one for Space Mountain if you want. Doesn't matter if you have one as part of your $15 a day one. And to answer your question about park hopping, if you buy Genie Plus for the day, you can use it at 2 different parks. So if you start at Magic Kingdom, you can do it a bit there. Then if you park hop to Epcot, you can look ahead and start booking a lightning lane at Epcot later in the day. Just remember, you can't park hop until 2 p.m. and you have to have entered the first park before you can hop to the second one. So you can't make any lightning lane reservations before 2 at your second park. And I also have to mention that, I know it's a lot, for those a la carte ones, if you're staying on property, you can book them at 7. If you're staying off property, you can't book those a la carte ones until the park opens. So that gives on-property guests a little bit of an edge. I know that's a lot. If that still doesn't make sense, leave a comment.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep going.
That's a lot. Yeah, I think it's one of those things too, David, where you are going to have to experience it to understand it. You know, it's just a mouthful.
It makes a lot more sense once you start doing it. I promise you. I promise you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you take our next one, Korliss.
All right, this is from Jamie. I purchased Memory Maker. What's the difference between that and Genie Plus Photos? So with this whole Genie Plus, the My Disney Experience app revamp, Disney is really tapping into social media and the way that people interact and with Disney, with the theme parks. And with this Genie Plus Photos, it's called the PhotoPass lenses, and it's just that, you know, where we would use certain filters in Instagram and Snapchat, where it would put, you know, many ears on us. With PhotoPass lenses, it can do things like turn you into Genie. It can also project or make it look like you're standing in front of the 25th anniversary castle. So it's just a way of adding a little extraness to your park experience. Now, Memory Maker is still the same, so those photos will still upload to your My Disney Experience app when you take pictures with PhotoPass photographers, or the ones that they give you when you're on an attraction.
Right. An easy way to remember it is Genie Plus comes with those kind of Snapchat filters, the augmented lenses, Memory Maker covers when you meet a physical photographer to take pictures of you. That's the easy way to break it down. Great. All right. Our next question, I'm not sure who this came from, but it's a really good one. If you purchase Genie Plus and book a Lightning Lane reservation and a ride breaks down during your time slot, what happens? Do you get a refund? Do you get a new time? How does that work? All right, that's a great question. I will admit, on my experience, I didn't have this happen. Nothing broke down, thankfully. So my answer to this is based on research I've seen from other people. And I've seen two different things happen. For the $15 a day Genie Plus option, if you book a time slot for a ride, and when you show up, it's broken down for some reason, your Lightning Lane reservation will turn into what's called an Other Experience Redemption Pass. So Disney basically says, hey, this ride is not working at the moment. You can either wait to come back later, or you can use this for something else. And I believe if you convert that to something else, you can then book your next one, I think, like if that 2-hour window comes into play. The other thing I've seen is that with the a la carte ride, so for example, Rise of the Resistance, which is not included of the $15 a day, if that ride breaks down during your time slot, it will let you just come back later in the day. It does say in the T's and C's that these are non-refundable, but I have seen some people have a situation where they went to Rise of the Resistance at their time slot, the ride was broken down, and it never reopened for the rest of the day. And in that instance, that person got a refund. So it really depends on a lot of details of what happens on the day you visit.
All right, our next question comes from Kathleen. This is from Kathleen, and she asked, if you book a Lightning Lane for a princess meet and greet, how does it work if you have multiple kids? So, similar to FastPass Plus, anybody who has a theme park ticket, which is anyone 3 and older, will require a Lightning Lane reservation. So, if you have a child that is 2 and under, then you would just take them right on in with you. It's the same concept. So with meet and greets, everybody would still have to have that reservation made. If it becomes a purchasable, that's not a word, but if it becomes available to buy one day, then everyone with a ticket would need to have that payment, that $15. So same as FastPass Plus. Right now, meet and greets aren't included. They're not even listed, and everybody's in the regular queue for that. So, maybe one day that will happen. Hope not.
I was gonna say, like, Princess Fairy Tale Hall just reopened. It is not listed as coming as an attraction with Genie Plus or Lightning Lanes. I hope it stays standby. I think it might be better that way.
I think so too. I think they should keep all meet and greets that way. Just, stand in the line.
Keep it going. Keep it moving.
That's right. And keep it moving. Yeah. I think, this is kind of side topic, but FastPass Plus really, really slowed down the standby queue.
Absolutely.
So if everybody's, not skipping the line, then that line with those photos, and especially now that you can talk to the characters, but we're not even up close very much. So, we're not, hugging like we used to. That really should just keep that line moving.
Yeah. Sticking to the topic of children, that takes us to our next one. It's a really good one. I actually got this question from 2 different people. Fraser asked, can parents still use Rider Swap with Lightning Lane? And Angela asked, how does Disney Genie Plus work with Rider Swap? And can you book the next ride after the first group taps or wait until the second? This is a great question. I know a lot of people in the past would split their FastPass Plus reservations and use Rider Swap with it. For example, I used to recommend this at Pandora at Animal Kingdom. If you had a family of 3, 1 child, 2 adults, I would say have 1 adult, book Flight of Passage. If the little one's too small or just doesn't want to ride, book Navi River Journey for that child and the second adult. But first, everyone all together would go to Flight of Passage, say, hey, I'm using Rider Swap. The first adult would go in, and the second adult would get a Rider Swap pass to come back and ride later. So the second adult and the kid could go ride the boat ride, and when they're done, and the first adult is done, they can swap, and that second adult would ride the attraction. Apparently now, again, I didn't experience this firsthand yet, everyone has to have a Lightning Lane reservation if you want to use Lightning Lane with rider swap. That whole splitting technique I don't think applies anymore. I do think it's a bit of a bummer because I'm like, what about the little one who doesn't want to ride? That kind of sucks. But I'm not 100% sure on this because I haven't tried it yet. We've got a little one in the family, so I should be trying it soon. And to answer that second question of, do you have to wait till the second person taps in to book your second one? I think the answer to that is yes, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Korliss, I'll let you take our last one. Really good one.
Last but not least, yep. If you could only get Genie Plus for one park, which would it be? Absolutely Magic Kingdom. It has the most attractions and lines, like long lines. I mean, I can think of a ton. Peter Pan, Haunted Mansion, Big Thunder, Space Mountain, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. There are just so many attractions at Magic Kingdom. It would be hands down the best $15 spent ever.
Absolutely. I think the only other park that comes close to that is Hollywood Studios because there's a lot of new rides that are really popular. But I would say, I agree with you, Korliss. If you only had the budget for one day, definitely do it at Magic Kingdom. But I would say if it's any of the individual a la carte ones to book extra for, 100% use it at Rise of the Resistance because neither virtual queue or the standby is easy. I went recently in that kind of weird time when Genie Plus hadn't come out yet, and Rise of the Resistance went standby, and the line was about 3 hours. And it was just a nightmare. And in that instance, I said, paying $15 for this is absolutely worth it because it's just too much of a headache for the other options. All right, so with that, my friends, that concludes this month's episode of Kingdom Talk. Korliss, thank you so much for joining me, like always. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
And I have a little special announcement to make. You're going to be seeing a little bit more of Korliss here on Beyond the Kingdoms. We're actually working on a little video series together starring just Korliss, and I'm really excited to share that. But that's coming soon. But I just wanted to let you all know you're going to be seeing a lot more of her. So thanks, Korliss, for spending the time with me here at Disney.
Absolutely.
And for next month's Kingdom Talk, we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of doing a discussion topic and answering questions, we're going to be sharing your favorite stuff at Disney World. Think of it as kind of like a Disney Hall of Fame. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, but for now, I might call it the Viewers' Choice Awards, where you vote for your favorite rides, restaurants, and lands and attractions. And so if you're watching this on a computer or a phone, I'll leave a link in the description down below. If you're watching this on your television, go to beyondthekingdoms.com and I'll leave a link on the homepage where you can start voting. So please, please, please vote. And until then, thank you so much for watching. And like always, you can dream it, you can do it.